Now it's going up. And I'll put up your logo and then we'll start the music. Here we go. Okay. I forget you guys can't hear the music, but when you see the logo go down,
Oh, okay.
I guess. But yeah, it's fine. You can just start. I'll put it in post.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Wrong About Sports. I am a Chicago Bears fan who's glad you can't lose on a bye week. Brian McDaniel.
And I am Vikings fan, fresh from across the pond with 1-1, Carla Bigham.
And we are
wrong about
sports. So the Bears and the Packers had a bye week this week, probably well timed for both teams. I was a little upset when the Bears had such an early bye, because there's a lot of season left. But I think it was a good time for them to regroup. And then the Packers are licking their wounds from some bad losses and ties and whatnot. But Carla, your team played. They were in London this week. You had watched them in Ireland, but we're not at the London game. But this was a game where the Vikings were looking really bad for most of the game. They did pull it out at the end. But what are your feelings about what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't pretty. They did better than I think expected. I mean, when you had by the end of the game, I think there were four backups on that offensive line. I mean, you had a third string center, never played before in that position, fourth string tackle, rookie guard, and who the heck knew what was going to happen with the quarterback, because Wentz went into halftime with a shoulder, and Brosmer was warming up. He took the final snap before the half. So. With all the injuries on both sides, two of our main linebackers, Cashman and Van Ginkel, are both hurt. Darisaw is not up to 100%. They had him on a snap count, and
I've never heard for a lineman like that.
And the game is on the line. I mean, I think they did end up checking with them. I know you and I were communicating about this during the game, and then after, I think they talked to KOC, the coach, after, and they said, yeah, I did talk to him, and we took him out because of just because they wanted to be cautious with him. But when the game is on the line, I don't know that I mean, they ended up doing it. It worked out fine. All's well that ends well, I guess. But I just think they really need this. They really need this bye to heal. It was not pretty yesterday. Wentz threw for 236 yards and a tutty at the end there to Addison, who was not on the good graces because he decided to go hop on, hop off or something. I don't know. And missed the walkthrough. And
I saw a great meme, because what had happened was I think that Addison had missed a walkthrough because he was just touring London, and it was a meme of Joey from Friends just walking around London, going, "London, baby!" So
it's and Justin Jefferson had some really good words to say that after in his post interview, post game interview, and just said, I'm taking him under my wing just to make sure he's right, but was disappointed, and he's a very important part of the team. He is a very important part of the team. He's a very good receiver. And let's just hope this maturity kicks in here, and he understands the significance of the opportunities. And
Well,
But
you almost have to worry a little bit that he's not getting it because he just came off of suspension for his reckless driving,
yeah,
which was not his first bout with that. He's got a chance to make a lot of money here, and he is doing very little to help himself.
yeah. But they end up winning it 21-17. Again, they go into a bye, and then they got just a hell of a schedule coming up, starting with the defending champs who had their first loss yesterday. The Eagles, and no more. Bills lost yesterday, so there's no more undefeated teams, which is rare for this early in the season. But I think this is going to be a big dogfight all the way through the season in this division, but also just through the conference. It's just a lot of the NFC is gonna be a tough one all the way through to the end.
The Eagles, like you said, they lost this week and they have looked vulnerable all year. They've just been pulling it out. There really isn't that dominant team. I would say after the first week, the Lions have been looking pretty good. They won this week, and the Packers looked unbeatable until they were beaten and then tied. They lost to the Browns, who the Vikings beat this week, and then they tied to Dallas, which is just embarrassing.
Yeah.
The Bears aren't anything, and you're kind of looking. The Rams are only okay, and the Niners, as they are every year, banged up.
Seattle is a team to watch, Brian.
Seattle's pretty good, but then they lost at home to Tampa Bay. So
and Tampa Bay's a team if they get it together. It's just about staying healthy and staying consistent. Our team, the Vikings have it. They have the talent. Right now it's injuries. I would say the play calling changed. The play calling changed this week, which I was pleasantly surprised about. It was questionable. I think just how the play calling was weird. And I think they switched up a little bit. And I appreciated that. But now it's about getting healthy and staying consistently healthy and that grit to stay through, to play all four quarters. We can do it. And I'll say this about your Bears. The future is theirs with the team they're trying to build. And then talking about the Lions real quick, like, I love Dan Campbell. I just absolutely love him. One of my favorite people. Emotionally, he's a player's coach. He's just great. You would think losing two of your coordinators. You and I were the first episode of this. We talked about brutal. You lose both your coordinators and 12 players they go into. They've held together. Held together, and it's just impressive, his leadership and what he's been able to do with that team thus far. Let's see. Again, it's going to be a fight all the way through.
Well, and the Bears had a bye this week, but next week they play the Washington Commanders, which is a revenge game. Because if you remember, they played last year, and the Bears had the game. The Bears had the game won, and then and their Tyreek Stevenson, their cornerback, he's playing to the crowd and yucking it up. And then they threw a Hail Mary. He wasn't in position. Ball got tipped. Commanders caught it for a touchdown in what is one of the most brutal losses that any team has suffered in any long time. And that, Eberflus is gone. So I'm hoping that's another close game, because I certainly like our chances a lot more under Coach Johnson than under Eberflus. But we'll see. This will be a good test for the Bears. The Vikings are going into a brutal stretch. The Bears are kind of in a manageable stretch where they're playing, more than a few teams that are beatable. Doesn't mean they're going to beat them, but beatable. And the Bears last week, they got their lucky rabbit's foot out and beat the Raiders, and that was a game that under Eberflus the Bears would have lost. So,
and Commanders are a little injured. They're a little beat up as well. And then the only other thing I want to say about the Lions is, Goff is a beast right now. I think he threw for 258 yards and 3 tutties yesterday.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a game. It's against the Bengals, and you and I were talking a little bit before this. There's a lot of teams that are playing with backup quarterbacks. You got Mac Jones with the 49ers. I did Jaden Daniels did play yesterday.
He played this week, yeah.
Yeah, he was questioned. He didn't play last week, but
Yeah.
Obviously Wentz is a backup. But plenty of quarterbacks that are out. And the Bengals, though, with Burrow being gone, they've felt this a little bit. And they haven't really rebounded. Yeah. And they have a lot of tools on that offense, especially. So at what point do you kind of say who's out there? Who's out there that
Jake Browning, who put up some decent yards and points numbers, but they were playing from behind and he threw 3 interceptions. So 3 touchdowns versus 3 interceptions is not really that great of a game for fantasy purposes. He at least redeemed a couple of his players like Jamar Chase. But with the Bengals, I mean, they are running the risk with all of these injuries that they have, and another year of no Joe Burrow, of kind of wasting some of the prime years of not just Burrow but Jamar Chase and a couple other
Brown
and T. Higgins and all of that. So they have to kind of make a decision here, like you said. Do they go out and try to find a more capable backup? It's hard to kind of throw a quarterback in there, but somebody like
Kirk Cousins or Russ Wilson
could definitely kind of pick it up. Or are they thinking, all right, well, this is a lost season again, so are we going to try to tank, get that good draft pick to help us for next year, get an offensive lineman, whatever they might need? So I'm not sure. But a question I have before we get back to that, about the injured quarterbacks. So I'm one of the people that believe the conspiracy, at least believe it a little bit, the conspiracy that J.J. McCarthy is not quite as injured as they're saying. And now they've kind of said, well, his ankle's even worse than we thought, which almost makes me think that maybe he has actually hurt. But I don't like, and you're seeing this in all sports, and we got to blame Twitter. But there was so much hype for J.J. McCarthy. He has a couple of bad games, which he's young. He's really his first opportunity, and now all of a sudden, like, people are willing to give up on him for the rest of his career. I don't know that that's right, but I do think that if the Vikings are going to stay on a upwardly moving trajectory, they kind of need to keep Wentz in there as long as they can keep him upright.
Yeah, I think they go back to McCarthy if he's healthy. I think they'll go back to McCarthy again. I think I've said this, but you don't have a lot of money invested in either one of these two, not significant amounts. So you can kind of rotate between the two of them depending on what you want to do. Not a really good strategy, though. That's just not a wise one. But I just think McCarthy is in his head a little bit. He reminds me so much of Christian Ponder. Like, he just overthought so much. And then you have, in my opinion, Wentz that looks a little bit like Darnold, where he holds the ball too much, only kind of wanted to throw it to Justin Jefferson. You saw yesterday he was getting it to Hawkinson and he got it to Addison. Remember, the Vikings are without Adam Jones. Mason is good, but he is not a receiving running back like Jones is. And so I just think if we get healthy, watch out. I do think you stick with McCarthy. We have every reason to be excited about him. I mean, he won one national championship game, been there a couple of times with Michigan. Huge recruit out of high school for college, obviously. We have every reason to have high expectations for this kid, and he is talented. I just think it's the maturity and the pace and the time. And I think with Josh McGowan and Kevin O'Connell with him, it's good opportunity. And Wentz is probably a good mentor as well. I was a little nervous because we ditched our backup quarterback while we were in Europe to make room on the roster. So you had Cam Akers with a helmet, with the radio and throwing, and did the Wildcat and everything like that. So we were slim pickings there. who would happen to be in there. Brosmer got hurt while, Wentz got hurt. So we're getting a little, we were getting a little slim pickings down there with it. But I do believe that we have opportunity with both McCarthy and Wentz. And Brosmer. Brosmer is a big future too. I mean, guy's natural raw talent.
Well, and one thing that I want to highlight is, Carla, we have a sponsor for the Wrong About Sports podcast. We want to thank our friends at the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association.
Here we go.
Since 1952, the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association has been helping licensed beverage retailers in the state of Minnesota with informational resources, educational programs, and government affairs services designed to promote and protect their businesses. For all of their member retailers, they need to understand that with the MLBA, you are not alone. And now we're no longer alone. We have our good friends at the MLBA. So thank you
awesome.
very, very much. But
thank you.
You had mentioned Christian Ponder and kind of alluded that he held the ball too long because he was overthinking or over pondering. But I remember one of the reasons I always liked him is that when he was in the draft process, an interviewer said, well, do you think that your last name, gives people any pause? And he goes, oh, like ponder, like I'm just going to think too long. And they go, yeah. He goes, well, don't worry. My mother's maiden name was Super Bowl champion. So I always thought that was very, very funny. So even though his career was not very good, I always kind of had a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for him. But this was a great week. I mean, well,
it wasn't a great week for a certain person.
Well, and what I was going to talk about was things got weird.
Yeah, they did get weird.
This was a weird week with no longer any undefeated teams and some big upsets. And, DeMarcado in Arizona dropping the ball before he crossed the goal line, which I don't understand how that can keep happening. But, these guys just got to get their head in the game. But Mark Sanchez, the lovely, the talented,
handsome
Mark Sanchez, he had a bad time in Indy.
We need to clarify because you're a lawyer. I am not, but I am married to one, so we all have to say allegedly.
Okay. So what had happened is Mark Sanchez, who is working with Fox now, was in Indianapolis, set to call the Indianapolis Vegas Raiders game, and he got into an altercation with an older gentleman. And at first, the news was Mark Sanchez gets stabbed in Indianapolis. And we're all like, oh, crime. Here's another city for Trump to go into. And then, but then we found out that wasn't really the case. What really happened, Carla?
So he was, I think it was behind a hotel area. He must have just been outside and somebody was picking up fryer oil, it sounded like. And he went in over to the person to shoo them away and say, hey, you can't be parked here. And that's, according to the hotel people. And some sort of altercation ensued, and he ended up in the car to try to move it apparently, and got stabbed in a fight. And the other person, I believe, also got stabbed. And then Mark Sanchez fled and ended up in the hospital. And I think he's been released now, but he was made aware of these alleged charges. And for the alleged crime, he's been charged with them while he was in the hospital. And he was relieved of his duties for calling the game on Sunday. And so, it's just an odd story, more odd than the butt fumble that happened to him while he was a player.
And the good people at Fox, they read a couple different times. They read a statement that was measured, but hardly supportive of Sanchez. And it does look like the alleged charges have some validity to them.
Yeah.
And this is something where obviously there seemed to be substances involved, whether it was alcohol or something stronger.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is something that he has struggled with, so we certainly don't want to make light of it.
No.
But he did allegedly put this gentleman in fear because they are saying that the stabbing of Mark Sanchez was self-defense because the guy felt very, very threatened, and he was 69 years old. So he was not a young punk who was looking for trouble here.
No, he was picking up like spent oil out of a fryer or something. But you know, and Sanchez isn't a little dude.
No,
a big boy. So
Yeah.
I mean, and so who knows how this will play out? But it obviously isn't. There's enough there that he got charged with some serious crimes.
What do you guys think about his legacy going forward from this? Which one do you see? Do you think this eclipses the butt fumble, or will this be his new thing?
Well, I think the butt fumble is going to, be shown more as far as like in highlights of, halls of shame and epic sports fails. So, but this is something that might kick him out of our consciousness altogether, because if he's no longer employed, in an analyst role, you're really just going to kind of forget that he is a thing at all.
Yeah.
Right.
No, this could be a crazy fall for someone who has everything going for them, right? Or appears to.
Appeared to, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So tonight, Brian, we have the Chiefs and Jaguars. We have the Chiefs who started off rough, 0-2. And we have the Jaguars that are 3-1 and really had a hell of a defense.
Yeah.
And I think, you have Mahomes that, and of course, Kelsey and his fiance released her album this week. I don't know if you listen to the album? I didn't listen to the whole album, a couple tracks, but it's lovely. It's poppy.
Getting mixed reviews though.
Why would anybody say anything bad about Taylor?
They're daring to say something bad about Taylor's new album. So,
that is not good.
Through osmosis, I probably heard the thing 4 different times between my wife and my daughter and my coworkers. It's fine. It sounds like her other stuff. If you like her other stuff, I figured you'd like this. But
right.
Well, it's not being hailed as the greatest thing ever.
I think her fiance is gonna have his hands full with this defense because they're averaging about 3 turnovers a game. They lead the league in takeaways. It's an incredible defense. And they do, though, have a rookie coach, Irish guy, Liam Cohen. And so he's had an impressive turnaround of that team compared to last year. And so I tend to focus on who plays the Chiefs because we know what the Chiefs bring. It's who they're playing that I tend to focus on. But I don't know. Chiefs are favored by 2.5. And the total points that they're predicting are 46.5. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think the Chiefs are getting right. And I think that even though Liam Cohen, who came from Tampa Bay, is doing a decent job, he hasn't been able to get Brian Thomas Jr. moving. He was someone that was a first or a second round pick in most people's fantasy drafts. But he had a great year last year, but that was with Mac Jones because Trevor Lawrence was hurt. Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. have not really been on the same page. No. The running game looks good with Etienne and Bashul Tutin. And all of that. But I think that the Chiefs are going to have not much trouble covering the 2.5. I think that they are just a much more talented team than the Jaguars, who are on the upswing a little bit. But I think that I'm pretty confident in taking the Chiefs tonight against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be a real close game, but I I don't know. I'm just going to say, I'm a little nervous that it's at Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I might not be as confident as you. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a close game. And I think that the Chiefs better come out hot and better grab a lead pretty good and try to settle that crowd down. I'll tell you that. But I will say that my prop plays, I'm going to say that Mahomes will throw an interception. I'm going to go the over for Mahomes. And then there's this.
Is it 0.5? Is that what they have his?
Yeah, 0.5. So yeah, I mean, whatever. They should just say 1 or none. Whatever. I get it. It's statistics. I'll play the game. But Tyson Campbell is a really good corner for Jacksonville. And he's kind of been a stud this season already. He had 9 combined tackles and assists, solo and assists against San Francisco, and which was a season high, and then also 7 against Houston. I'm gonna go over. I know I might be thinking this is against the Chiefs, but I'm gonna give him the over on 6.5 tackles and assists today. I think they're going to bring the heat against that offensive line, which arguably is probably the weakness of the Chiefs, not the offense in general. But I think they have a lot of tools. And I think you're going to talk about one of those tools in the toolbox for the Chiefs. But I think their offensive line is something that needs a little help. And so that's why I'm thinking that.
All right. Well, kind of what we do every week, everybody, is that we're gonna not only talk about the Monday night game, but we're gonna talk about a prop bet, usually one for each team. So for the Chiefs, I'm looking at their wide receiver Xavier Worthy. The line on his receiving yards is 51.5. I'm going to take the under on that. He's a little banged up. He had a bad shoulder from the first week. He ran into Travis Kelce and messed up his shoulder. And now they said that that he's having an ankle problem as well. So he's listed as questionable, but they think he will play. But I think that those 2 injuries are going to limit him. So like I said, I'm going to take the under on the 51.5. I think that the Chiefs are going to be playing from ahead, so they're not going to have to throw as much. And so they'll be running the ball. And then
Brian, Taylor said that Travis is like a redwood. And so, we run into a redwood.
Oh yeah. She gave Travis quite the shout out in one of her calls, in one of her songs, as I understand it. But for the Jaguars, like I said, they got Travis Etienne, who has been doing very well, and he's a pass catching back. But the line for his receptions is 1.5, and that's way too low. So I'm going to take the over. I think he's going to at least have 2 receptions. I think they'll be playing from behind. They'll have to throw a little bit. So I think those are actually 2 pretty slam dunky, chalky picks for me. But they both sound like good. But one other prediction I'm going to make. I'm going to predict that in tonight's game, the Cubs come back and they beat the Brewers. Since we were on, fly the W. Since we were on last week, you were in Ireland, but Allison, Nessie, and Mike Franklin were kind enough to jump in. I've had the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat because my Cubs beat the San Diego Padres. I was in Wrigley for one of those games, and it was awesome. But then on Saturday, they played the Brewers in the division series and got shellacked. But I think they come back tonight. They got Shota Imanaga on the mound. They're playing in Milwaukee, but we call their stadium Wrigley North because it's usually more than half filled with Cubs fans. So that is my prediction, my hope, my wish, because they need to get a game in Milwaukee before they go back to Chicago.
There you go.
Those are my thoughts right there.
I'd give a Twins update other than Rocco being fired.
Yep.
I want to toss this out real quick. Just to you don't have to decide now, but I think we should try to come up with something to put on these actual over/under bets. We can like keep track week to week or something, to win. So if you guys can think of something,
We'll call them
Think of-
Big'em Bucks.
yeah.
We'll bet Big'em Bucks. Big'em Bucks and Brian Bucks. That's how we'll do it.
there you
There
go.
we
That's a good
go.
idea. We'll do that. We'll do that for next time. Anything else to add before we move on?
No, it's just looking forward to a good game tonight.
All right. Well, I'm hoping I'm singing Go Cubs Go tonight. And I am Bears fan Brian McDaniel.
And I am Vikings fan Carla Bigham.
And we are
wrong
about sports. Thank you, Gabe.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you guys. Can't wait to see those Brian Bucks and Carla Bucks trading hands.
Big'em Bucks.
There you go.
Alliteration. All right.
See you guys.
We're down.
All right, I gotta run. See you guys.